When you pause, label the feeling, and observe it, your brain literally quiets the storm. Feels like a Jedi mind trick, right? Here's a weird but true fact. Most of your anger doesn't come from what happened, it comes from the story you tell yourself about what happened. You're not mad because the lady took too long with her card. You're mad because you thought, she's wasting my time. Or why does this stuff always happen to me? That's classic main character syndrome, by the way. You've made yourself the center of the universe and everyone else is just a badly written, supporting role in your tragic sitcom called People Annoy Me. Now, experts still argue about whether anger can ever be healthy. Some say it's a warning signal. Others say it always causes damage. But one thing they all agree on is this: you can choose how you respond to it. Here's a little mental exercise for the next time that rage starts to bubble up. Stop. Take a deep breath. Say out loud, I'm feeling angry. Ask yourself, is there another way I could see this right now? Sounds simple? Sure. Easy to do? Not really. Worth practicing? Absolutely. One of my friends used to drive Uber in Boston. Every day he'd get yelled at, pointed at, even had a customer throw a shoe at him once. True story. But then he started practicing Stoic habits. One day, when passengers started arguing politics in the back seat, instead of getting worked up, he smiled and asked, would you guys prefer jazz or silence today? Boom. Peace restored. See? No one can make you angry unless you give them permission. So from now on, every time you feel your blood pressure rise, remember this: this isn't a natural reflex. It's a choice. And you, my friend, have the power to choose differently. Accept things as they are. You can't stop the rain by shouting at the clouds. And yet, that's exactly what you do when you get upset about something that already is. Whether it's your boss canceling your weekend last minute, your partner forgetting your anniversary, or the barista spelling your name Greg instead of Greg, again you get mad because reality doesn't match the story you expected. But here's the Stoic twist: the more you resist reality, the more you suffer. And not because life is unfair, but because you've convinced yourself it should be fair, predictable, and tailored just for you. Spoiler alert, it's not. The Stoics had a word for this kind of calm clarity. Anger is a choice, not a reflex. Anger isn't something you have to feel. It's something you choose to feel. Yeah, I know that probably sounds like the kind of thing that deserves a flying Crocs to the face. But hear me out. Believe it or not, most of your anger, whether it's getting stuck on the I-405 during rush hour, or someone forgetting to return your Wendy's Starbucks order, isn't caused by the event itself. It's caused by your mind's reaction to it. And here's the kicker: that reaction is voluntary. Anger doesn't just show up like the flu. It needs a place to stay. And that place, unfortunately, is your own mind. You're living in modern-day America, where everything seems like it's designed to drive you nuts. Sky-high bills, noisy neighbors, unstable Wi-Fi, and random strangers blasting FaceTime convos like they're hosting a podcast in public. But what if I told you that you could train your mind to never get upset again? I mean it. You might not survive long without something to complain about, though just saying so. Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment below with where you're tuning in from and what time it is. I love seeing this little community from all across the US show up to calm the hell down. Now, let's calm down and begin our journey of listening and healing together today. Picture this. It's a typical Monday morning. You're in line at Walgreens to pick up some cold meds. In front of you, an elderly woman is trying to swipe her discount card 3 times and it's not working. The young cashier is forcing a polite smile. The people behind you are sighing, and someone mutters, I'm gonna be late for work. Your chest gets hot. Your jaw clenches. And then you snap. But what if I told you, in that moment, you didn't have to snap at all? That's the core of Stoic philosophy, a way of thinking that goes back over 2,000 years. One of its champions, Marcus Aurelius, wrote in his personal journal, "If you're angry, it's because you think this is something worth getting angry about." So instead of reacting on autopilot, the Stoic asks, is there another way to see this? Modern neuroscience actually backs this up. The part of your brain called the amygdala lights up when you sense a threat. That's the emotional center. But your prefrontal cortex, the rational part, can override that anger response. Amor fati, the love of fate, not just accepting what happens, but embracing it as necessary. You're sitting in traffic on I-95. Again, red lights stretching ahead like a cruel Christmas decoration. You glance at the clock. You were supposed to be home 20 minutes ago. You feel the heat rising up your spine. But then you remember what we talked about. You loosen your grip on the steering wheel, lean back, and whisper, "This is the reality. My anger won't change it." That's not giving up. That's taking back control. Because when you accept what is, instead of mentally wrestling what should have been, you stop wasting emotional energy on a fantasy. You're no longer at war with life. Modern psychology agrees. Studies on radical acceptance, a therapy concept from dialectical behavior therapy (DBT), show that people who consciously accept painful emotions and situations experience less distress, fewer depressive symptoms, and better relationships. Not because things get easier, but because they stop fighting the moment. Here's something most people don't know. Your brain actually expends more energy resisting emotion than feeling it. When you suppress or deny what's happening, you activate your prefrontal cortex like a hamster sprinting on a wheel. But when you acknowledge and accept the moment, the brain shifts into a calmer, energy-efficient mode. In other words, resistance is exhausting. Acceptance is efficient. But let's be clear, acceptance isn't the same as approval. It doesn't mean you liked it. It just means you recognized it is. Marcus Aurelius said it simply, objective judgment, now, at this very moment. Unselfish action, now, at this very moment. Willing acceptance now, at this very moment of all external events. That's all you need. So, the next time your plans fall apart, your Wi-Fi drops during an important Zoom call, or the weather ruins your outdoor wedding, don't scream at the sky. Pause, breathe. Say, this is not what I wanted, but it is what it is. Then move through it. I'll give you a real-world example. A woman I once knew in Phoenix had saved for years to open a small plant shop. She poured her soul into that space. 6 months later, the plaza got shut down due to zoning disputes. Just like that, her dream wilted. I called her, expecting heartbreak. But she said, I cried for a day. Then I remembered what Marcus Aurelius said, the universe is change. I can grieve it, or grow from it. I chose both. See, people think calmness is something you're born with, like dimples or metabolism. But it's not. It's a skill. And like all skills, it's built in the tiny moments where you choose to stop resisting. Experts still debate whether full acceptance leads to passivity, whether we lose our drive if we stop fighting life. But Stoicism doesn't say do nothing. It says start from peace, then act with purpose. You're not a tree. You don't have to love the storm. But you do have to stop yelling at the wind like it owes you calm. So next time something doesn't go your way, instead of asking why me, try, what now? Because once you accept what's happened, you unlock the only real freedom you've ever had. What you do next. Control what you can. Release what you can't. You ever try fixing a TV with no remote? You press all the buttons on the screen, shake it a little, unplug it, and plug it back in. Nothing works, because the real control, it's in the remote, which is under the couch, right where your toddler hid it 3 days ago. That's how most people live, trying to control life without having the remote. You stress about other people's opinions. You agonize over the weather, the economy, your ex's new relationship, or how your boss should treat you. And every time something goes wrong, your instinct is to grip tighter. But the Stoics knew better. Epictetus, a former slave turned philosopher, dropped this truth bomb over 2,000 years ago. Some things are up to us and some are not. Boom. The most powerful emotional filter in history, right there in one sentence. You remember that job interview last spring? You prepped like crazy. You bought new shoes. You even Googled confident but humble answers like a champ. But then, the guy in the Zoom meeting seemed distracted. You didn't get the call back. You spiraled. But here's what you didn't know. The manager's kid had just been suspended from school. He couldn't focus. And it had nothing to do with you. But because you thought it was your fault, you wasted a week hating yourself and binge watching crime documentaries in your bathrobe. See how much we suffer over things outside our control. According to behavioral science, this is called the locus of control, your belief about what controls your life. People with an internal locus believe they control their outcomes. People with an external locus believe fate, luck, or other people do. And here's the twist. Stoics believed in both, but with a clear boundary. Control the input, not the outcome. You can control your thoughts, your attitude, your choices, your reaction. You cannot control other people's past, future, and no chance. Here's a fun fact most people don't know. Your brain naturally blurs that boundary. It hates uncertainty. So it tries to predict, assume, and manipulate the uncontrollable because it wants to feel safe. But the more you do that, the more anxious you become. In fact, studies show people who try to control everything around them tend to suffer higher levels of chronic stress, digestive issues, and even sleep disorders. Because when you try to control what isn't yours, it pushes back. Imagine walking around with a backpack full of bricks. One brick says, what if she doesn't text back? Another says, I should have said something better. Another says, what if the market crashes next year? The Stoic way, drop the damn bag. If it's not yours to carry, stop lugging it around like it's designer. A buddy of mine, let's call him Derek, once had a roommate who constantly left dishes in the sink. Derek got mad every day. He'd lecture, text passive-aggressive, emojis, even by a whiteboard chart. Nothing changed. Until one day, Derek just stopped. He washed his own stuff, let the rest go, and played music while doing it. I asked if it bothered him anymore. He said, nah, I stopped renting out space in my head for free. That's stoicism in action. Now, some experts still argue about how much control humans really have. Are our choices fully free, or are they shaped by subconscious patterns, upbringing, and biology? Even the philosophers debated that. But the takeaway remains: focus on the space between stimulus and response. That small, quiet moment where you decide what's yours and what is in single quotes T. So next time you feel frustrated, ask, is this inside my control? If yes, act with intention. If no, release it like a helium balloon. Don't chase it. Don't analyze it. Just let it float. Because the key to peace isn't fixing everything around you. It's knowing exactly what isn't your job to fix. People don't owe you anything. Let me say this gently. The world isn't a customer service desk, and people are not walking around with a receipt for your happiness, but somehow, deep down, you keep expecting them to be. You expect your spouse to always understand your moods. You expect your coworkers to appreciate your effort. You expect strangers to drive decently, talk politely, and chew with their mouths closed. And when they don't, boom, your whole day gets wrecked. But here's the truth. People don't owe you that. Not respect, not kindness, not even decency. Shocking, right? But the Stoics saw this clearly. Expecting people to act how you think they should is a fast track to constant disappointment. You remember last Thanksgiving? You spent days planning, cooking, organizing seating like a Tetris game. And then your cousin shows up 2 hours late with an attitude and a bag of soggy grocery store cookies. You were furious. But the Stoic in you, if you had listened, would have whispered, "Of course he did. That's just who he is." Why are you surprised? That's the secret. Expect human behavior to be human. Messy, inconsistent, sometimes rude, sometimes beautiful, but always imperfect. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, today I will meet people who are meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly. They are like this because they don't know the difference between good and evil." It's not cynical. It's freeing. Because once you drop the belief that others must behave a certain way to keep you calm, you take your peace back. This is backed by research too. Psychologists call it the expectation gap, the emotional distance between what you hoped would happen and what actually happened. The bigger the gap, the bigger the disappointment. So if you expect everyone to be thoughtful, timely, or self-aware, you're basically designing your own trap. Here's something most people don't know. The brain tends to default to egocentric assumptions. We judge others by their actions, but ourselves by our intentions. So when you mess up, it was a bad day. But when they mess up, it's because they're selfish. That's called fundamental attribution error. And it's why relationships fall apart over misread texts and delayed replies. A friend of mine, let's call her Melissa, once spent weeks planning her birthday dinner. She handpicked the restaurant, sent a Google Calendar invite, even curated a playlist. And 3 of her friends bailed last minute. She cried in the car for an hour. But the next day, she told me, "I realized I was writing a script in my head and expecting everyone to follow it without telling them what role they were playing." That hit me like a brick. Made of honesty. The Stoics would have nodded in agreement. People are who they are, not who you wish they were. And when you accept that, you stop taking everything so personally. Some experts still argue about whether expectations are necessary for social order after all. We need standards to live together, right? Yes, but Stoicism isn't about abandoning standards. It's about releasing the emotional attachment to them. You can hope someone treats you with respect. You can even ask for it. But you don't have to suffer when they don't. So next time someone disappoints you, instead of saying, "How could they?" try saying, "Of course they did. And I'm still okay." Because the moment you stop expecting others to protect your peace, you finally learn how to protect it yourself. Your reaction is the only thing you truly own. Think about this for a second. Everything in your life can be taken away: your job, your house, your car, even your physical health. But there's one thing no one can ever take from you unless you hand it over willingly: your reaction. That's it. That's your real estate. That's your kingdom. That is, as the Stoics would say, your ruling faculty. And once you realize it's the only true power you possess, you stop giving it away, like coupons at a gas station. Let's take you back to a familiar moment. You're standing at the checkout line in Costco, and the person in front of you suddenly starts arguing with the cashier. They're wrong. You know they're wrong, but they're loud and dramatic and completely convinced they're right. Your heart rate goes up. Your breathing tightens. You feel the urge to step in and set the record straight. But you stop. You ask yourself, is this worth giving up my peace? Nope. So you lean against the cart. Pull out your phone and watch cat videos instead. That's power. You didn't control the situation. You controlled your access to suffering. You owned your reaction. Now here's something cool. Brain science actually confirms what the Stoics figured out millennia ago. When you get triggered, your limbic system lights up first. It's the emotional brain, fast and impulsive. But if you pause, even for just 6 seconds, your prefrontal cortex, that wise, rational voice in your head, kicks in. That 6-second pause, it's not just breathing room. It's where freedom lives. There's a reason the Navy SEALs use a technique called box breathing. For seconds, inhale, for hold, for exhale, for hold. Because when you're trained to respond instead of react, you perform under pressure instead of becoming a slave to it. Most people don't realize this. Every emotional reaction leaves a chemical trace in your body. An angry outburst can take hours to fully clear from your nervous system. That means one bad moment, if you let it, can hijack an entire afternoon. And you thought that guy who cut you off on the freeway was gone? Nope. He's still living rent-free in your chest for hours later while you're folding laundry in silence. That's why the Stoics treated emotional discipline like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. The more you choose not to overreact, the more that choice becomes your default. A woman I met once in Austin told me a story that stuck with me. She was going through a nasty divorce. One day, during mediation, her ex-husband insulted her parenting in front of everyone. She looked at him, breathed, and calmly asked, "Is this your way of expressing fear?" He blinked. The whole room went silent. She told me, "I realized I didn't need to win. I just needed to keep my self-respect." And that's when I understood. Real control isn't about controlling others. It's about not letting them control you. Now, experts still debate whether emotional control suppresses authenticity. Don't. You need to express how you feel. They ask. Yes, but not dump it. There's a difference between feeling your emotions and being owned by them. One leads to healing. The other to havoc. So next time someone tries to push your buttons, remember, you own the panel. You own the dial. You get to choose if and how you respond. Try this mantra the next time tension rises. I don't have to attend every argument. I'm invited to. Because when you stop reacting to every provocation, you're not losing. You're winning silently. And in that silence, you find a deeper kind of peace no one can touch. Imagine the worst, then let it go. It sounds backwards, right? But one of the most powerful Stoic practices is this: negative visualization. Imagine the worst case scenario, not to invite it, but to disarm it. Because when you've already visited the basement in your mind, nothing in the real world feels that dark anymore. It's like this: you're afraid of falling until you've rehearsed the fall in your head. Then suddenly, the ledge doesn't look so intimidating. Let's say your company's been making cutbacks. You feel that knot in your stomach every time your manager schedules a meeting. What if I lose my job? Your hands sweat. Your brain races. You Google emergency budget plans at 3 a.m., but instead of letting anxiety spiral, you sit down and do what the ancient Stoics did. You imagine losing your job. What would happen? Maybe you'd be embarrassed, scared, struggle for a few months. But then maybe you'd start something new. You'd simplify your life. You'd finally try that side hustle you've been putting off for years. You'd survive, not thrive right away, maybe, but live. Yes. And suddenly, the fear loses its teeth. Seneca, the Roman philosopher, practiced this all the time. He robs present ills of their power who has perceived their coming beforehand. In other words, when you imagine the bad before it happens, you weaken its grip if it happens. Modern psychologists use this too. It's called defensive pessimism, a strategy where people visualize worst-case scenarios to mentally prepare and reduce anxiety. And it works, because the human brain is addicted to uncertainty. It fears what it can't see. But once you name it, face it, feel it, it stops looming in the dark. You take away its power. Here's something you probably didn't know. Your nervous system reacts less intensely to actual pain than it does to anticipated pain. That means your fear of something going wrong often feels worse than the thing itself. You suffer more in imagination than in reality. Seneca literally said that 2,000 years ago. And today, neurologists agree. A friend of mine in Seattle had a fear of getting old and dying alone. Every time she saw gray hair or got another wedding invitation, she spiraled. Until one day, she did the unthinkable. She spent a whole weekend imagining what that life might look like. A quiet apartment, solo trips to museums, cooking for one. She journaled it all, then added beauty to the picture. Freedom, books, morning, walks, and a cat named Clementine. She smiled and said, "I stopped running from the shadow." Turns out it wasn't a monster, it was just me. Now, some experts still question whether visualizing negative outcomes creates more anxiety. Won't thinking about the worst just make you feel worse? Not if you finish the process. The Stoic method isn't to stop at fear. It's to walk all the way through it and come out the other side. With clarity, try this exercise next. Time you're afraid of something failing, losing, being rejected, don't push it away. Invite it in, close your eyes, and play it out like a movie, scene by scene. How would it feel? What would you do? How would you adapt? Then open your eyes and breathe. And remind yourself, you've already survived this once in your mind. You can do it again, for real. Because once you've pictured the worst, it stops owning you. And you get to walk into your life, not with dread, but with prepared peace. Emotions are visitors, not tenants. Your emotions don't define you. They visit. They knock. Sometimes they barge in uninvited, eat your food, and leave their shoes on the couch. But they're not permanent residents unless you give them a spare key. This is where most people go wrong. They become their feelings. I'm angry. I'm anxious. I'm a mess. But the Stoics taught something radically different. You are not your emotion. You are the observer of it. Think of yourself as a house. Anger knocks on the door loud, rude, and holding a Monster energy drink. You don't have to let it move in. You can say, "I see you. Come in for tea if you must, but you're not staying overnight." Let's make this real. You're scrolling Instagram and see your ex posting vacation selfies with someone new. Suddenly, you feel this flood of heat, sadness, jealousy, maybe even self-loathing. The old you would stew in it, stalk every photo, and dig a hole of overthinking deep enough to hit lava. But now you stop. You say, "I notice I'm feeling triggered." That small phrase creates space, and in that space, you reclaim your power. Modern mindfulness experts call this emotional labeling, and research shows that simply naming a feeling reduces activity in the amygdala, the emotional panic center of the brain. It's like shining a flashlight in a dark hallway. The shadows shrink. Here's something most people don't realize. The average emotion only lasts 90 seconds. That's it. But you replay it. You analyze it. You feed it with inner dialogue and stories and what ifs. You take a 90-second spark and turn it into a 9-hour farce fire. All because you couldn't just let the guest leave. A buddy of mine in Chicago, let's call him Jay, once got ghosted after a second date. He thought went amazing. He was crushed, but instead of diving into self-pity, he sat with it. He literally Whispered out loud, "This hurts. I'm disappointed. I feel rejected." Then he put on jazz, went for a walk, and didn't check his phone for a day. 2 days later, the girl texted. She'd had a family emergency. Jay, calm, unshaken, already at peace, because he'd already processed the emotion instead of making it a roommate. Now, of course, some experts still debate how much emotional detachment is healthy. Shouldn't we feel our feelings? Absolutely. But Stoicism isn't about suppressing emotions. It's about not identifying with them, letting them pass through, not build a condo in your head. Try this simple Stoic technique next time you feel overwhelmed. Pause. Name the emotion. Say to yourself, "I am experiencing this feeling, but I am not this feeling." Watch what happens. This doesn't mean you become cold or robotic. It means you become anchored, able to stand still while storms pass through. Because when you stop trying to fix every emotional wave, you start to ride them. And riding emotions like surfing takes balance, breath, and letting go. So next time your feelings knock, open the door. Say hello. Offer them a chair. But don't hand over the deed to your peace. They're just visitors. And your soul still belongs to you. Silence is a superpower. Use it 10 times. The most powerful thing you can say is nothing. Not because you don't have a comeback, but because you don't need one. In a world that runs on reactions, tweets, comments, hot takes, silence is rebellion. It's control. It's grace wrapped in restraint. Think about the last time someone tried to get a rise out of you. Maybe it was your teenage kid with their perfectly timed eye roll. Maybe it was a coworker throwing passive-aggressive shade in a meeting. Or that one friend who always turns every compliment into a backhanded one. You could have snapped. Instead, you blinked. You smiled. And you said nothing. You felt it, didn't you? That small surge of power that comes when you don't take the bait. That, my friend, is Stoic silence, not weakness. Wisdom. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury." In other words, don't mirror fools. Just outgrow them. Science actually backs this up. There's a part of the brain called the anterior cingulate cortex that gets activated when we feel social pain, like rejection or humiliation. But studies show that when people practice emotional regulation, especially through silence and reframing, the brain reduces activity in that center. Translation: staying silent literally protects your peace. Here's something you might not know. Your nervous system resets faster in silence than it does through venting or ranting. Noise keeps the loop going. Silence breaks it. That's why monks, artists, and Navy SEALs all practice silence not just as absence of sound, but as a form of deep internal reset. A woman I met in Brooklyn told me this story. She was in the middle of a heated family argument at Thanksgiving turkey. Flying, tempers flaring. Then, just as her uncle made a cruel comment about her career, she looked at him and simply nodded, not in agreement. Just a peaceful, "I hear you, and I choose not to fight you." She got up, washed a dish, and walked outside. Later, her aunt pulled her aside and said, "I've never seen someone win an argument without saying a word." Exactly. Silence, when chosen, isn't retreat. It's redirection. It's saying, "I'm too powerful to play small right now." Now, some experts still argue whether silence is always effective. Does it invite more misunderstanding? Sure it can. But here's the Stoic take. If your peace depends on being understood by everyone, you're giving your peace away. Speak when it serves truth. Stay silent when it protects your energy. Try this. Next time someone says something to provoke you, don't flinch. Take a breath. Look at them not with anger, but with calm clarity and say nothing. Let your presence do the talking. Or, if you must speak, Try the Stoic one-liner. I hear you. That's it, not agreement, not submission, just acknowledgement. Then walk away with your dignity tucked neatly into your pocket. Because in a world addicted to noise, your silence is a form of power. And using it wisely, that's not losing. That's leveling up. Detach from the outcome, live in the effort. Let's get honest for a second. Most of your suffering doesn't come from failure. It comes from clinging to what you hoped would happen. The job you thought was yours. The relationship you were sure would last. The plan you needed to work out exactly the way you imagined. When it didn't, you crumbled. Not because it failed, but because you couldn't let go of the outcome. But here's what the Stoics knew. The result is not your business. Your effort is. You can write the perfect email and still get ghosted. You can work out 5 days a week and still gain weight during the holidays. You can love someone deeply and still lose them. Because life isn't a math equation. It's jazz, messy, unpredictable, and wildly out of tune at times. But you are responsible for the notes you play, not the final song. There's this concept in Stoicism called the dichotomy of control. We touched on it earlier. But this is where it hits home. Do what you can. Let go of the rest. Or, in the immortal words of Epictetus, make the best use of what is in your power, and take the rest as it happens. Here's something wild from modern psychology. Studies show that people who focus more on process goals, what they do, rather than outcome goals, what they get, tend to experience more satisfaction, resilience, and long-term success. Why? Because the outcome is fragile. It's wrapped in variables you can't control: other people's choices, timing, the weather, the economy. But the effort, that's yours. Always has been. Let's ground this in real life. A friend of mine, let's call him Chris, spent a year pitching a book. Agents ignored him. Editors sent polite no thanks emails. He almost gave up. Then, one day, he stopped writing to get published. He started writing because he wanted to write. The next month, a blog post he wrote went viral. A week later, a publisher called him. Same guy, same words, but a different spirit behind the action. That's what happens when you detach from the finish line and fall in love with the walk. Now, some experts still debate whether detachment kills ambition. If I stop caring about the outcome, won't I stop trying? Nope. Because Stoic detachment isn't about laziness, it's about emotional freedom. You still plant seeds. You just stop crying every time the rain doesn't come on schedule. Try this mantra next time you're chasing something big. I commit to the process. The result will take care of itself. Or this one. When disappointment knocks, I gave it my best. That was my part. Now I let go. This shift, this detachment is not easy. It takes daily reminders. Hourly, sometimes, but with practice, you'll find that your heart hurts less when things fall apart. Not because you don't care, but because you understand that your value was never tied to how it all turned out. Because when you stop tying your worth to the outcome, you get to fall in love with the effort. And in the effort, you discover the one thing no one can ever take from you: your integrity. Peace isn't a destination, it's a daily practice. You think you'll be calm when life finally slows down. When the debt's paid. When the house is clean. When the people around you finally get their act together. But let me break the news gently. That moment never arrives. There will always be bills. There will always be noise. And yes, someone will always leave the toilet seat up. Peace isn't waiting for you at the end of your to-do list. Peace is something you create right now, in the middle of the chaos, with whatever tools you have, no matter how messy or incomplete. The Stoics understood this. They didn't wait for the world to become calm, they became calm in the world. That's real resilience. That's Stoic peace. You wake up. Your phone is already vibrating with 5 notifications. The dog peed on the rug. Your kid forgot their homework. Your boss emailed at 3 a.m. asking for an urgent update. You haven't even brushed your teeth yet. You feel your breath shorten. Your fists tighten. But then you pause. You remember, none of these things are me. None of these things own me. You step back. And in that breath you choose peace. Here's a fact most people never consider. You can feel stress and still choose calm. It's not about removing emotion. It's about deciding not to become the emotion. Neuroscientists call this emotional flexibility. People who develop it have lower cortisol levels, better immune systems, and healthier relationships. Not because they avoid discomfort, but because they adapt to it with grace, just like Stoics. A friend of mine once told me he starts every day with a 3-word mantra. This is enough. Before checking his phone. Before reading the news. Before remembering everything that needs to be done. He says it to anchor himself in the moment. To remind himself, peace is not out there. It's right here. If you let it be, now. Some critics say inner peace is a luxury. Try being calm when you're broke or grieving, they say. And they're right. Some days are hard. Some pain is deep. But that's exactly when this practice matters most. Because peace isn't a luxury. It's a necessity. It's the oxygen mask you put on first. So you can help others without falling apart yourself. Start small. Take one silent breath before replying to a difficult email. Let one insult pass without reply. Watch one sunset without scrolling. Say one kind thing to yourself when your mind turns cruel. Peace isn't loud. It's not performative. It's not flashy. It's the quiet choice you make when no one's watching. The pause between thoughts. The stillness in the middle of the storm. Because in the end, the world won't get calmer. But you can. And that changes everything. Now, slow your breath. Remember everything we've traveled through today. From managing your anger to letting go of what you can't control. From understanding that people don't owe you peace to realizing that peace isn't earned, it's chosen. Chosen every moment. Chosen by you. You've listened. You've reflected. Maybe even laughed a little. So let the noise around you fade. Let the pressure in your chest melt. And allow your thoughts to settle like snow in a globe. Because you don't need to chase peace anymore. You just need to stop running from it. If you're over 55 and this video spoke to you, please take a moment to share your story in the comments. What have you learned about peace, letting go, or staying calm after a lifetime of challenges? Your wisdom might be exactly what someone younger needs to hear today. Tell us where you're watching from, what time it is, and what part of the message touched you most. Let's build a space where age is not a barrier but a bridge to deeper understanding. End of scenario. Congratulations. If you have recognized your past mistakes and begun to heal,